Security forces foiled an attempt to detonate a booby-trapped car carrying 700 kilograms of explosives in Damascus countryside. One citizen martyred and 2 civilians are wounded in the explosion of 2 devices planted by terrorist gangs in Berzeh. And Lavrov will visit Tehran in 2 days' time to discuss the situation in Syria and the meeting of the 6 countries in Moscow to discuss Iran's nuclear file. Good afternoon, this is News in English. A soldier was killed and 2 citizens were wounded when 2 explosive devices were detonated by armed terrorist groups in 2 vehicles in Berzeh. The first explosion went off near Hamish hospitals in a Toyota Corolla vehicle, killing the driver. The second went off behind the secondary school of Abdul Rauf Saeed. It was detonated by a terrorist in a Mercedes vehicle, and it wounded 2 persons inside it. In a related context, the security forces foiled the terrorist attempt to blow up a booby-trapped Mercedes car in Shabha near Jalamana in Damascus countryside. The engineers defused the bomb that comprised of under 700 kilograms of explosives. A team of the international observers inspected this car this morning. Also, a terrorist gang attacked the headquarters of a military unit in Homs countryside in an attempt to steal weapons and military equipment. The guards confronted the terrorists and killed a number of them. Another terrorist group targeted the power station to the west of National Hospital in Homs. This caused a fire in the station, stopping work in it. The damage caused by this act of sabotage has not been evaluated yet. And in Yelda, in Damascus countryside, security forces, and in cooperation with locals there, stormed a hideout for terrorist groups and found a factory for making explosive devices. The authorities seized 3 explosive devices ready for detonation and high explosives and toxic materials such as ammonium nitrate and fertilizers that were used in making explosive devices. In the countryside of Latakia, competent authorities fended off an armed terrorist group that attacked the security forces in the town of Selma. An official source was quoted as saying that the clashes between the competent authorities and the terrorists have killed and injured a large number of terrorists. 5 law enforcement members were also killed and 4 others were wounded. A terrorist driving a car yesterday blew himself up near a Saleh petrol station in the village of Kefraya in Idlib countryside. A source in the governorate said that the car was loaded with explosives and detonated before the arrival of the car, causing the immediate death of the terrorist.
The Turkish-Saudi-Qatari triangle spearheaded the vicious campaign against Syria, according to a press report published by the Financial Times. The report asserted that the Gulf countries, particularly Saudi and Qatari regimes, supported the terrorist gangs with heavy weapons, including anti-tank missiles, under the turbans of some fanatic Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia. The paper said that the Gulf weapons and money, particularly from Qatari regime, was aimed at creating chaos and instability in Syria and the region as a whole. Turkey plays the role of a coordinator through giving haven and training to thousands of terrorists from abroad. The Kuwaiti paper Al-Qabas and the Lebanese An-Nahar admitted that dozens of Kuwaitis crossed into Syria from Turkey under the pretext of jihad, after Turkey supplied them with false Syrian identity cards. They are delivered to armed groups of the so-called Free Army. They are sent to various governorates in Syria. The close link of these terrorists with Israel was exposed in the confessions of some of them. They accepted arms and support from Israel to fight against the army of their own homeland, Syria. An Israeli official announced Israel's readiness to treat the wounded terrorists fighting in Syria and to send doctors to neighboring countries for this purpose.
More than 200 citizens involved in recent events were released after investigations showed they were not involved in murder acts. They surrendered themselves to security forces in Damascus, its countryside, Homs, Idlib, Aleppo, and Daraa. The release came after they pledged not to carry weapons or take part in sabotage acts or distribution of weapons or disruption of security. Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim received Dr. Adam Abd al-Mawla, who presented him as his credentials as a UN ambassador and representative of the UN Humanitarian Development Program in Syria. They discussed aspects of cooperation and ways of consolidating them in all fields. A source in the Russian Foreign Ministry said today that the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will discuss the situation in Syria and preparations for the meeting of the 6 countries about Iran's nuclear file during Mr. Lavrov's visit to Iran on June 13th. The 2 sides will concentrate on the situation in the Arab world, stressing the situation in Syria and ways to help Kofi Annan's mission to achieve success. They will also discuss the Russian initiative to hold an international conference on Syria, in addition to the meeting in Moscow of the 6 countries about Iran's nuclear file on June 18th and 19th. Russia's permanent envoy at the UN, Vitaly Churkin, said that the efforts being exerted with the so-called Friends of Syria group are harmful and they would not help in settling the crisis because this group is only seeking for pretexts to overthrow the Syrian government instead of implementing the plan of the UN envoy, Kofi Annan. Concerning the international conference to which Russia called for discussing the Syria and the crisis in it, the Churkin said that it is not suitable to talk about the U.S. categorical objection to the Iranian participation in the conference, adding that the U.S. has certain doubts during this stage and Russia would discuss this issue with the U.S. and other 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Chinese Deputy Foreign Minister Qiao Tiankai said that the situation in Syria should not be on the agenda of the upcoming Group 20 summit, which will be held in Mexico later this month, because the summit needs to stay focused on the global economic issues, including the European debt crisis. He added that the situation in Syria is a source of global concern, yet the Group of 20 is a platform for the management of the global economy. And so far, we haven't seen the security and political issues on the agenda of the Group of 20. The Party's Affairs Committee held a meeting under the chairmanship of the Minister of Interior. The committee discussed a number of applications for forming new parties. Al-Sha'ar said that the committee decided to refer the documents of the People's Party and the Party of National Reform for publishing in 2 dailies for 7 days. And with this we conclude our political bulletin for today. For more news and details, log on to our website in English, www.syriaonline.sy.